Hey all, here at OS Reviews. Today we're taking a closer look at the ID206. This is a budget smartwatch that sells for under $50, and what makes it interesting is it supports Amazon's Alexa virtual assistant. So if you're connected to your phone using Bluetooth, the watch has a microphone and a key that you can tap on to create some quick voice commands and ask it questions like what's the weather, control different appliances in your home. Otherwise, it has a 1.7-inch TFT LCD display, which is also a little larger than some of the other more generic budget smartwatches we've seen in the past. It has several different customizable watch faces, and you can also find more from the companion app and even create your own watch face by sending over a photo. As far as sports tracking, it has 14 different modes, which are all pretty basic. And again, there is no built-in GPS, but you can use connected GPS if you have it connected to your phone and you want to rely on your phone's GPS to map your location. Finally, it comes in 3 colors: pink, blue, and black. Now, the ID206 is actually sold over several different brands, but they're all the same watch. So the model here is going to be branded by JIKKO. However, the exact same model is also sold by companies like Doogee, which makes smartphones usually, but they're also selling a version of this watch, as well as brands like Letscom. So it's going to be pretty popular, just sold under different brands, putting their name on it, but it's the same product. Inside of here, we have, of course, the smartwatch itself, and there's also the charging cable, which is magnetic. All you need to do is attach it onto the back to quickly charge it up in around 2 hours. Speaking of battery life, the watch itself will last you for around 10 days, drops about 10% of battery per day in my testing. So coming over to the watch itself, as aforementioned, it doesn't look shabby for a budget model. The screen size here is definitely larger than budget models from before that we've seen. For example, here is the Halo SpO2, which has a 1.3-inch display, or something like even the Amazfit Bip from a while back. You can see how much larger the bezels are. It is 2.5D curved glass, which means that as you're swiping along, it does feel quite smooth and responsive with the edges slowly bending off. The side here features a crown key, which is a little reminiscent of the Apple Watch. Now, the sides of the watch are constructed out of aluminum alloy, so it actually has a pretty sturdy construction. Again, surprising for this low cost, although the back of the watch is made out of a polycarbonate plastic. We have the typical blood oxygen and heart rate monitoring and the charging contacts, and then here is the microphone. It also feels quite comfortable and not too heavy either on the wrist. It's thin enough, it doesn't really get in the way as you're wearing it in the day-to-day, and it doesn't really weigh you down. Now, in terms of the menu interface here, it's actually quite simple. We can actually long hold for a few seconds to change the watch face like many other smartwatches, and it comes with a handful, and you can pick between those. Again, some of these are definitely inspired a bit by the Apple Watch, but not that bad at this low price point. They still are attractive enough and shows off the vibrancy of this LCD screen quite nicely. Even though it's not a OLED or AMOLED screen, the contrast levels are still quite good. This is an example of a custom photo that we sent over. Otherwise, we can swipe down to access notifications. You're able to read back text messages, missed calls, social media messages, but you can't reply to them. But that is pretty similar to other smartwatches in this price range. Drag up to access the quick shortcuts, including changing the brightness of the screen. So now we're at the maximum. This is the dimmest setting, and there's 5 levels that you can select between, although there is no auto mode, as expected for this price point. Otherwise, swiping over on the side goes through a carousel of all the different widgets that it can show you, and it's pretty fluid overall. You're able to see number of steps you've walked during the day, calories burned, basic stats, and then swipe over again to take a look at the continuous heart rate, maximum and minimum over the past 24 hours. Once again, to take a look at your stress level. So this is also done automatically and estimated based on your heart rate. If your heart rate is fluctuating too much, it will tell you that you're stressed. And you can see here, it does know the difference between if you're wearing it or not. So the heart rate sensor is actually quite good in terms of accuracy. When I compared it to some more expensive smartwatches like the Amazfit GTS2 as aforementioned and the Apple Watch, it was actually not too far off, so quite good in terms of giving you a estimation. Once over again, we'll take a look at the different sports and activities that you can track. So if I tap on more, you can find a selection of different ones, again over 14. So the watch itself is rated to be IP68. You can take this into the shower, it will still survive, but it's not a 5 ATM rating, so I would be a bit more cautious of going into deeper waters with this. Now, if I want to do a quick sports, it will start in 3 seconds and basically continuously track your heart rate, step information, and estimated speed, things like that over the entire session. And you can also connect to your phone and control the music from the watch once you are connected. Last but not least, the final page over is the Alexa assistant. What's the weather? It will process and take a few seconds to do that, and it'll say right now it's what the maximum temperature is and what the temperature tomorrow will be. So again, as long as you're connected to your phone using Bluetooth and your phone has access to the internet, it will be able to answer those questions, taking around, I would say 10 seconds or so for it to process. So it's not instantaneous since the watch itself doesn't connect to Wi-Fi or the internet by itself, but still is a pretty neat feature. We can try something else like, what's a smartwatch? And as long as you're in a space where you're close by to the watch, you can see that it will pick up your voice really without too many problems, and you can read back text pretty easily on the watch just by scrolling along. It won't read it back out loud to you, and you also aren't able to answer calls directly from this unit, but still answering questions at a quick key is pretty neat. Now you can also trigger the assistant just by long holding on the crown key for a few seconds. That's another way that you can quickly access it if you don't want to go through the entire carousel to get to the assistant. So there is a quick launch command, which is pretty useful. Alternatively, if you tap on the crown key just one time, it will pull up the list of full applications. So you can take a look at your health data at a quick glance through the past 24 hours, number of times that you were active, and other things on here include the exercise records. So if there were any sessions that were saved earlier, you can see and review back your data and heart rate zone. For more complete data, of course, you can also sync it over to the phone to look at that later on. Other things on here include blood oxygen monitoring. So the SpO2 monitoring, by the way, is not continuous or automatic, just like other smartwatches, so you have to manually begin it, compared to the heart rate, which is done for you, every few minutes during the day. So this will take about 20 to 30 seconds. You have to be still for it to get a reading. And you can also find on here sleep data, so you're able to see your sleep record from the past night on here. The sleep tracking is done automatically, and surprisingly, it's actually quite accurate in terms of detecting number of times you were awake, as well as light versus deep sleep stages, and when you woke up and when you fell asleep. However, it does not track naps during the day, unlike some more expensive smartwatches from Amazfit or Huawei or the Apple Watch. So it only tracks it at night, typically between the hours of say 10 p.m. If you go to sleep around that, it will then track the sleep for you, and then the accuracy is actually quite good. Now finally, in terms of weather, you can also take a look at that status synced over from the phone, the current weather conditions, and then swiping down for the next 2 days ahead. There's also alarms that you can set up directly from the watch, by the way, and when it gets to the correct time and also when you receive notifications, it will vibrate. Let's take a closer look at the companion app, which as aforementioned is called VeryFit. It is generic, so it works with other smartwatches on the market that are low cost as well, but it is quite easy to sync over data just by pulling down, as well as some other metrics decoded, like how many times during the day that you were in a high intensity workout, were walking around. This is tracked automatically, and also your sleep data and training sessions can also be seen. And then finally, under device settings, you're able to see the battery percentage remaining, as well as any watch faces that you can find. From here, you're able to also customize the style and even the colors of some of these watch faces, and gives you a bit of diversity there. So here is a handful that you can pick between. Most of these are pretty colorful, animated. The watch's memory, by the way, can only hold about one custom watch face that you download at a time. So if you want to download another one, it will push the existing one out of the memory. And now changing it to one more, which is inspired by a Walkman cassette, also looks quite cool. Now finally, under the My Profile tab, you get to control things like what types of notifications will pass through to the watch, and you can also see if you've met your goal, which you can change for number of steps you want to hit per day. If you've completed your goal, you will get certain awards. On the Device tab, you can also click on the watch itself, and this is actually where you're able to add your Amazon Alexa account. So how you set this up is really easy, but you just tap on this. So you simply need to go here to set it up by logging in and then agreeing to the kind of privacy settings, and you're ready to go. And there's some suggestions on things that you can ask it to do. So that is more or less it for the ID206. I have to say that budget smartwatches have come a long way, and now for only 50 bucks, you are getting something that is really not shabby at all. A watch that has actually a pretty attractive design, along with very good construction made out of metal as well as glass, and again, support for Alexa, which is something that not even all of the more expensive watches have fully implemented yet. And even step counting is fairly good. The watch itself didn't count any accidental steps if I kind of shook the watch. When I walked 100 steps, in fact, it told me that I had actually gone around 95 steps. So if anything, it's a bit on the conservative side, actually quite similar in that regard to the Amazfit GTR and GTS line. And there's even some cute reminders like telling you to get up and move every hour and try to get at least 100 steps going. So there are some interesting functions built into the software that is better than you'll expect for this price range. So you can check out more details if you're interested in the links below. For now, that's been our video. Thanks for watching here at OS Reviews. It's been the ID206 budget smartwatch.